welcome to my channel. The moment I walked into my apartment, the familiar hum of the city outside faded into a comforting background noise. It was late afternoon, the golden sunlight slipping through the blinds, casting stripes across the wooden floor. My small apartment always felt cozy, a personal sanctuary where I could finally let my guard down. But today, even here, I felt an unusual tension in my chest, a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. I'm Alex, 24, and by day, I worked as a junior graphic designer at a modest marketing agency. To the outside world, I was just a regular guy with a routine life, commuting to work, grabbing coffee with colleagues, and occasionally meeting up with friends. But there was another side to me, a secret part of myself that I'd never dared to show anyone. Until recently. Crossdressing had always fascinated me. It wasn't just about clothing. It was about freedom, about slipping into a version of myself that was soft, expressive, and completely untethered from the expectations that weighed me down as a man. At first, it was purely experimental. I'd try on clothes when no one was home, marvel at how a simple dress or a touch of makeup could transform not just my appearance but my mood. The mirror became my confidant, reflecting back the version of me that rarely saw the light of day. But lately things had escalated. My sister Emma had been away on a month-long business trip, and I found myself curiously stepping into her world. Her wardrobe was a rainbow of silky blouses, flowing skirts, and elegant dresses, each piece whispering possibilities I'd only imagined. At first, it was just a thrill, putting on one of her dresses, feeling the fabric against my skin, and catching my reflection in the mirror. But the more I did it, the more I realized. I didn't just enjoy wearing her clothes. I enjoyed being her. It wasn't malicious or disrespectful. It was an exploration of identity, of freedom. And then Isabella came into the picture. Isabella, my girlfriend of 2 years, had always been confident, bold, and impossibly intuitive. She could read me like an open book, and I often wondered if she could sense the parts of myself I kept hidden even from my own reflection. Our relationship was loving but complicated. She thrived on control and mystery while I was secretive by nature. I knew that if she ever discovered this side of me, the reaction could swing anywhere from shock to fascination. That uncertainty both thrilled and terrified me. It all started innocently enough one quiet Saturday. Emma had left her apartment key with me for emergencies, and I had an idea, harmless at first, to try on one of her outfits while no one else was home. I slid into a soft pastel blouse, matched it with a high-waisted skirt, and fastened the delicate necklace she loved so much. The transformation was instantaneous. My posture shifted, my movements softened, and for a fleeting moment, I caught myself laughing softly in the mirror, mesmerized by the reflection staring back at me. That day I realized something important. I could become someone else entirely without stepping outside. And when Isabella called that evening, casually mentioning she might drop by, a thrill ran through me. What if I could pull it off? What if she walked into the apartment and believed just for a moment that I was Emma? The thought was intoxicating. I spent hours preparing, selecting the right outfit, adjusting the wig to perfectly mimic Emma's curls, and even practicing her mannerisms in the mirror. Every movement, every tilt of my head, every soft laugh had to be perfect. I wanted it to be convincing, not just for Isabella but for myself. I wanted to feel the liberation of fully inhabiting this alternate persona. Yet as the minutes ticked by, anxiety began to creep in. What if she saw through it? What if she laughed, or worse, was disappointed? My heart raced with a dangerous mixture of excitement and fear. I told myself it was harmless, a temporary role, a playful experiment, but a part of me knew it could spiral. By the time Isabella knocked, my reflection in the mirror was flawless, or so I hoped. The soft curl of the wig framed my face perfectly, my blouse and skirt fit just right, and even my voice, when I softly greeted her from the hallway, carried a delicate lilt that felt like a secret promise. "Alex," she called, stepping inside. "Hi, Emma," I whispered, forcing a laugh that sounded eerily like my sister's. Her eyes flicked up, scanning me carefully. I could see curiosity and maybe a flicker of confusion dance across her face. And in that moment, a thrill unlike anything I had felt before surged through me. I wasn't just cross-dressing anymore. I was performing a delicate act of deception, testing boundaries, exploring identity, and flirting with the edge of danger, all in the quiet sanctuary of my own apartment. That was the beginning of everything. The line between who I was and who I pretended to be blurred in ways I couldn't have imagined. And as Isabella smiled, unsuspecting, I realized this was only the first step. The adventure and the suspense was just beginning. This completes the introduction, 1000 words, establishing Alex's backstory, their secret, the setting, and the dynamic with Isabella. We can now move on to the build-up section where the suspense and transformation intensify. Do you want me to start writing the build-up next? The minutes after Isabella stepped into the apartment felt like hours. My hands trembled slightly as I offered her a soft smile, trying to mimic the way Emma would tilt her head and let her hair fall gracefully over her shoulder. Isabella's eyes lingered on me longer than I expected, and my stomach tightened with equal parts dread and thrill. This was no longer just a private experiment. I was performing a delicate dance on the edge of discovery, and every small gesture could betray me. I guided her toward the couch, offering her a drink. My movements were deliberate, practiced in the mirror earlier, but the adrenaline made each step feel heavier. My heels clicked softly against the wooden floor, a sound that suddenly seemed deafening. Isabella sat down and watched me closely, sipping her tea with an almost imperceptible arch of her eyebrow. "You look different," she said finally, her voice calm but probing. I laughed nervously, smoothing the skirt that clung to my hips just like Emma's would. "I guess I just wanted to try something new," I said, my voice a few octaves higher than usual. My heart pounded. That single sentence carried the weight of a lie, but it was laced with an awkward honesty that somehow felt convincing. As the afternoon passed, I found myself slipping further into Emma's persona. Every glance in the mirror reflected a version of me I hadn't fully embraced before, soft, delicate, and intoxicatingly feminine. The fabric of the blouse against my skin, the swish of the skirt with every step, even the subtle weight of the necklace around my neck. It all heightened my awareness of the performance I was living. Yet the thrill was always accompanied by fear. My mind raced with possibilities. What if Isabella noticed the faint scratch of stubble at my jawline? What if my voice cracked under pressure? And the most terrifying thought of all, what if this experiment revealed a part of me I wasn't ready to confront fully? I excused myself to the bedroom under the pretense of grabbing something, but really I needed a moment alone. Standing in front of Emma's full-length mirror, I examined the reflection, my reflection, but with a new, almost alien softness. I adjusted the wig again, tugged slightly at the blouse to smooth it, and ran my fingers down the skirt. The sensation was electric, and a part of me reveled in the liberation. I wasn't just wearing clothes, I was inhabiting another self entirely. That evening, Isabella stayed longer than expected. She talked about her day, laughed at small jokes, and occasionally glanced at me with curiosity that made my chest tighten. Every smile I returned, every laugh I mimicked, felt like walking a tightrope over a chasm of discovery. As the hours went by, my imagination began to run wild. What if I had to maintain this persona longer than anticipated? Could I act convincingly enough to deceive someone as perceptive as Isabella for an extended period? I tested my voice again when she excused herself to take a call, shifting my tone carefully to match Emma's gentle cadence. I felt a strange empowerment. This was a game of skill, patience, and subtlety. But empowerment was intertwined with guilt. I could feel it creeping into the edges of my thoughts, whispering reminders that this was deception. I loved Isabella. I wanted to share parts of myself with her. Yet here I was, pretending to be someone else entirely, hiding behind a mask of silken curls. The moral tension sent shivers down my spine, but it also added an addictive layer to the thrill. As night fell, the apartment dimmed under the soft glow of lamps. Shadows stretched across the walls, giving an almost cinematic drama to every movement. Isabella had moved to the kitchen to get herself a snack, leaving me alone in the living room. I walked slowly, heels clicking softly, and caught a glimpse of my reflection in the glass of the TV screen. I froze. The person staring back was undeniably feminine, delicate, and eerily convincing. The sight sent a rush of adrenaline through me. This was more than a costume. It was a revelation of desire, of hidden facets of my identity that I hadn't allowed myself to explore fully. Suddenly, a thought struck me. What if this didn't remain a private experiment? What if my curiosity spiraled into something bigger? Could I convince Isabella to play along, to accept this side of me? The notion was intoxicating, but I shoved it aside for the moment. The immediate challenge was simpler and yet terrifying. Keep the secret for the night. A knock at the door made my heart leap into my throat. Isabella turned toward it, puzzled, and I realized with a jolt that I had forgotten she had mentioned a neighbor dropping by. The minutes stretched into unbearable tension as we waited. When the visitor arrived, a friendly elderly neighbor, it was a relief, but I could feel the sweat prickling at the back of my neck. Every gesture, every word had to be perfect. I greeted her with a soft, high-pitched hello, and smiled, praying my tone didn't falter. The neighbor commented on how different I looked, and I laughed lightly, brushing it off as a whim. Isabella chuckled, and I exhaled slowly, realizing I had survived the first close call. But the tension lingered, a constant undercurrent that reminded me this was only the beginning. Later, as Isabella left, she paused at the door. "You've changed," she said, her tone teasing but with an undertone I couldn't quite place. I forced a casual laugh, my heart pounding, and waved goodbye. The instant the door closed, I collapsed onto the couch, a mix of exhilaration and fear flooding through me. I had pulled it off, at least for now, but the thrill came with a sharp edge. Every moment in Emma's skin was both liberation and risk, and I knew the stakes would only escalate. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail. The way Isabella's gaze lingered, the soft hum of the apartment, the sensation of the blouse and skirt against my skin. Each memory was a mixture of joy and anxiety. And deep down I knew this experiment wasn't going to stay contained. Something was stirring, an unforeseen twist that would challenge my abilities, my courage, and my sense of self. The thrill of the night was undeniable. I was addicted to the duality, the secret I carried, the persona I inhabited, the delicate deception I balanced. And as sleep finally pulled me under, I knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning of a suspenseful journey where the line between Alex and Emma would blur in ways I could never have anticipated. This completes the build-up section showing Alex's transformation, internal conflict, suspense, and the escalating stakes with Isabella's presence. If you're ready, we can move on to the climax section next, where tensions reach their peak, unexpected twists occur, and the stakes explode dramatically. Do you want me to start the climax now? The following days became a high-wire act. Every knock at the door, every unexpected text from Isabella, every casual mention of Emma's things sent my heart racing. I had managed to maintain the illusion for a week now, each day a delicate choreography of posture, tone, and subtle gestures. But as thrilling as it was, the tension had become suffocating. I was walking a tightrope, and one misstep could topple the precarious world I'd built. It began on a Friday evening. I had returned from work and, as usual, immediately slipped into Emma's wardrobe. The thrill of putting on the pastel blouse, the skirt that hugged my hips, and the delicate jewelry was intoxicating. This time, however, I wanted to push it further. I had borrowed Emma's perfume, something light and floral, and carefully sprayed it over my skin. I inhaled deeply, letting the scent fill me with confidence, while a flicker of fear gnawed at the back of my mind. Isabella would be home soon, and I had to be flawless. The door opened and she walked in with her usual smile. But today there was a spark of curiosity, almost suspicion, in her gaze. I felt my pulse quicken. "Hi, Emma," I said softly, my voice steady but delicate. Her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "You've been around a lot lately, haven't you?" she asked, tilting her head. My stomach dropped. Just studying," I replied, letting the lie roll off my tongue naturally. I could feel the sweat forming along my hairline. Isabella didn't challenge me immediately. Instead, she began talking about mundane things, watching me closely all the while. The more she observed, the more my mind raced. What if she already suspected? What if this wasn't a game to her but a test to see how far I'd go? I walked carefully around the apartment, heels clicking softly, trying to maintain the casual elegance of Emma's persona. Every fiber of my being was tense, alert. Then the unexpected happened. A knock at the door, a rapid, urgent knock. Isabella frowned. "I wasn't expecting anyone," she said. My heart leapt. I forced a smile, moving toward the door in my heels, praying it wasn't someone who knew Emma personally. It was a delivery man holding a large package. Relief and frustration collided inside me. I signed for it with trembling hands, the small interaction sending waves of adrenaline through me. Isabella observed silently, and I could feel her suspicions growing, like an invisible weight pressing down on me. Later that evening the real test came. Isabella had to step out briefly, leaving me alone. I seized the moment, moving through the apartment in my feminine attire, reveling in the full transformation. But as I admired myself in the mirror, I noticed something. A small tear in the skirt, barely visible but enough to throw off the illusion. Panic surged. I tried to smooth it, but the rip worsened and I felt exposed, vulnerable and terrified of discovery. As I worked frantically to fix the skirt, I heard the faintest sound of keys in the door. My heart stopped. Isabella had returned early. I barely had time to spin around, my hands clutching the fabric as she stepped into the apartment. Emma? She asked, her voice soft but sharp like a blade. The slip of my real name caught in my throat and I realized she had pieced it together, even if partially. I didn't mean, I began, but words failed me. My carefully constructed performance teetered on the edge of collapse. Isabella's gaze softened, then sharpened. Why are you doing this? She asked, stepping closer. I could see curiosity, confusion, and a hint of amusement in her eyes, and my chest tightened. I was exposed, raw, and completely vulnerable, but there was also a strange thrill in this confrontation. A recognition that my secret self, my feminine persona, was undeniable. In that moment, the line between Alex and Emma blurred completely. I had to decide: revert to my old self, risk losing this intoxicating freedom, or embrace it fully and face the consequences. My hands shook as I smoothed the blouse, my voice softening naturally into Emma's tone. Isabella studied me silently, then unexpectedly she smiled. You really wanted me to see this side of you, didn't you? She asked. The tension broke slightly, but my pulse was still racing. The thrill of almost being discovered combined with the exhilaration of acceptance was dizzying. But the climax didn't end there. A sudden noise, a dropped vase in the kitchen, made both of us jump. Isabella moved to check, and in that moment, a strand of wig slipped from my head, revealing my real hair underneath. Panic surged. I froze, unsure whether to correct it or let it be. Isabella noticed immediately, her eyes widening, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she reached out and adjusted the wig for me, her touch gentle, almost intimate. The apartment seemed suspended in time, the world narrowing down to the two of us, and the secret I had been guarding with every ounce of energy. I realized then that this experiment, this crossdressing, wasn't just a private thrill. It was a part of me that I could no longer deny, a part that Isabella might accept or at least understand if I was brave enough to show it. The night stretched on, each movement a balance between revelation and concealment, fear and exhilaration. I walked, talked, and even laughed fully as Emma, feeling the duality of my identity merge in ways that were terrifying, intoxicating, and liberating all at once. The boundaries of my secret life had been tested, challenged, and pushed to the brink, and I emerged both exhilarated and terrified of the next steps. This climax section builds intense suspense, introduces close calls, and tests the limits of Alex's dual identity, setting up a dramatic cliffhanger. If you're ready, we can now move on to the cliffhanger ending, which will wrap this episode in unresolved tension and leave viewers eager for the next story. Do you want me to write the cliffhanger ending next? The apartment was quiet, the kind of stillness that presses against your chest and makes every small sound seem amplified. I had spent hours earlier in the living room, rehearsing Emma's gestures, adjusting the wig and walking carefully across the room in heels that now felt like extensions of my own body. Isabella had left a little while ago, or so I thought, but as I stood by the window adjusting the skirt one last time, a shadow flickered across the blinds. My heart jumped. Was it just a trick of the streetlight, or... Well, the shadow moved closer, deliberate, and I realized with a jolt that someone was at the door. My hands shook, caught between panic and the irresistible thrill that had been coursing through me all week. I tiptoed to the door, heels clicking softly, and peered through the peephole. Isabella. Or was it really her? My mind raced. What if she had returned early and seen me like this before I could fully prepare? What if she didn't recognize me and realized something was off? The anxiety twisted in my stomach, sharp and electric. I opened the door slightly, just enough to speak, my voice wavering between Alex's normal tone and Emma's softer pitch. Is everything okay? Her face appeared in the dim hallway light. She smiled, but there was something unreadable in her eyes. Curiosity, amusement, maybe suspicion. I thought I left something here, and I wanted to see you, she said softly, stepping closer. I froze, trapped between the urge to retreat and the temptation to hold the persona I had perfected over the past week. My hands, still trembling, clutched the edges of the blouse as if it could anchor me in reality. She glanced at me from head to toe, her gaze lingering on the delicate contours of my figure, the carefully styled wig, the soft shimmer of makeup on my cheeks. A pause hung between us, thick with tension. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, loud enough to drown out every rational thought. "You look different," she whispered, tilting her head. And then, almost imperceptibly, a smirk curved her lips. The ambiguity in her expression made my stomach drop. Did she know? Did she suspect? Or was this some game she was playing, testing the limits of my daring? Before I could answer, a sudden sound shattered the moment. A loud crash from the kitchen. My breath caught in my throat. A vase had fallen, shattering into countless pieces on the tile floor. Isabella flinched slightly, and I seized the moment to step toward her, keeping my movements delicate, feminine, yet cautious. Her eyes followed me intently, and I could feel the weight of her scrutiny. Every heartbeat, every tremor, every subtle sway of my body spoke louder than words. I realized then that I was completely exposed, yet I also felt an exhilarating liberation. This was more than crossdressing. This was revealing a hidden part of myself, raw and unfiltered, to someone whose reaction I couldn't predict. You're playing a role, aren't you?" she asked finally, her voice calm but edged with intrigue. I swallowed hard. The truth was teetering on the tip of my tongue. I wanted to confess, to explain the thrill, the secret, the freedom I felt. But fear held me back. Fear of judgment, fear of losing control, fear of shattering the delicate balance I had maintained. My voice faltered, a mixture of Emma's soft tone and Alex's hesitation. She stepped closer, the light catching her eyes in a way that made my knees weak. "Whatever it is, I want to understand," she said, her smile gentle but unreadable. The moment stretched, suspended in time. I could feel the duality inside me, the part of me that longed to be fully Emma, the part that clung desperately to my identity as Alex, and the part that trembled at the possibility of being discovered. The apartment, the shadows, the echo of heels on the floor, it all became a stage for a suspense I could no longer escape. Then, without warning, her hand reached out, brushing a stray curl from my face. My heart leapt into my throat. The contact was electric, intimate, and terrifying. It blurred the lines between secret and revelation, between performance and reality. "You've changed," she murmured almost to herself. And in that single, ambiguous statement, the world shifted. Did she truly see me as Emma? Or had she glimpsed the truth beneath the facade? I stood frozen, caught between exhilaration and dread, as the door behind her creaked ominously. A gust of wind from the hall rattled the windows, and the shadows in the room seemed to stretch and twist. The suspense hung thick in the air. And then silence. I didn't move. She didn't move. The uncertainty was unbearable. The truth of my secret, the thrill of my deception, and the fragile tension of our shared glance formed a cliffhanger that refused resolution. Outside, the city hummed, oblivious. Inside, everything had changed, yet nothing was certain. Would Isabella accept this side of me? Would she see Emma, Alex, or both? Or would the carefully constructed persona crumble under scrutiny? The questions swirled in my mind, leaving my heart pounding and my senses alert. The screen of my imagination froze in that instant, leaving viewers suspended in the same uncertain tension. All that was left was a choice between revelation and concealment, courage and fear, desire and hesitation. And in that unresolved moment I realized, this was just the beginning. This cliffhanger leaves the audience eager for the next episode, questioning whether Alex's secret will be discovered, how Isabella will react, and how far Alex will push the dual identity. We now have all 4 story sections completed. Introduction, build-up, climax, and cliffhanger ending. If you want, I can also compile the full story into a single continuous narrative ready for a YouTube video script with pacing and formatting optimized for reading aloud. Do you want me to do that next?